Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari. We got Kirk Riese back here with us. Hey, Kirk, how you doing?
Good yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Apologies to the audience. There was some funny business going on, but let's put that aside. Let's focus on the issue at hand. Um, before we get started, we're going to make some announcements. So, Kirk, do you want to tell everyone the good news about Mr. Michael Jackson?
Oh, I got a call this morning saying that Michael Jackson, the man that saved his daughter from getting the was given time served and a few years of conditions for protecting his daughter from something that he felt could cause imminent harm. So it's a win. He's still got a big fight to go to see his daughter. It's been over 3 years. I really feel for the man. And I hope people support him because it's a lonely road for people like him. And thanks for
Yeah.
having me on as well, Payman. I'm gonna shut off this light.
No worries. Yeah, good for him. And I was glad to hear the news. Um, I understand it's not over, but at least it's a win.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get on to your story. I want to make some sort of some statements at the beginning, and you can fill them in. So first things first. What we're trying to be, we're going to be very careful with our words, and we're not. We don't really have any conclusive evidence. We have circumstantial evidence, and you're asking basically for an investigation to look into it.
Well, I believe I have evidence, but I just can't post it. I can't show all my cards. So, I've shared enough. There's plenty to demand an investigation. It's just zero contact for 5 years. It's really bizarre.
All right, and a couple of again, I didn't mean to downplay what you're saying. It's
Yep.
just we don't have a smoking gun video of some general taking cash and putting it in his
No,
pocket.
no, we don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have
which is
access to the military payroll or anything. So
which is the purpose of an investigation that
yeah,
you're calling for.
exactly. Yeah.
The other things the audience sort of takeaways. One, this is not a partisan issue. We have a very corrupt liberal government, but you're going to tell stories that cut across every party
Yeah.
on a very small, very minor scale, but also my party, the People's Party.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's this sense of it's not my problem, not my responsibility.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was mine. It still is because I was never legally released. But 1947, the Rangers were, when we first started to protect Canadian sovereignty. And in our creed, it says we have to get all the information and give it to the proper authorities. Well, I thought I would be done 5 years ago. And since they wouldn't take my information then, I just kept going, basically incriminating wrongdoers as I went. I didn't think it would be this long. I underestimated the corruption, and they underestimated my survival skills. So it's kind of I've been at war for 5 years.
One final thing that I think you wanted me to mention is when you say you don't have any like irrefutable evidence, the one thing that you can prove in your own words is the human rights violations against you and your family.
Massive human rights violations, massive reprisal. It's all supposed to be not allowed. But the day I made claims is the day I faced immediate reprisal. That's highly provable. No, and no one's questioned it for 5 years. If I did something that was wrong or they could get me on, they would have done it 5 years ago. Instead, it's complete radio silence, as if I don't exist anymore.
All right. And one final thing I will say, okay, a couple of final things. My whole purpose in doing this, I'm very good at taking complicated issues and structuring them. I'm sort of an engineer and a designer. You're my friend, and I'm hoping that by doing these threads, it will, in a more simple, clear way, convey your story so that bigger people than I, it's Fox News or whatever, will pick up your story.
Yeah, it's not. I appreciate everything you're doing. Like you're my hero, but a lot of it's not your job. It's the RCMP's job, the politicians' job, the mainstream media's job to do this reporting. But here you are stepping up where no one else has. A lot of people have interviewed me, but none would share my evidence, which is kind of bizarre. And it makes it a lot easier when you post stuff. So thanks a lot. And thanks again.
Well, glad to help any way I can. And then the last time Kirk was on and Michael Jackson was on, we ran into some really funny technical issues. So if that happens again, wink, wink. If people start attacking this stream, I'm gonna stop and we're gonna ask you to like, share, and subscribe to sort of outsmart the YouTube algorithm. I think what they do is they mass report us. This is child pornography or something, so they demote us.
You know what? I did notice one thing. Your subscribers have gone up like 60 in a few hours. Mine have stayed constant for 2 days. So no one ever adds me or moves anything. But you're going up there, so that's good. People are watching.
Well, if you want to get into the numbers, it is strange. Like you have 16,000 views on this thread. Usually, I get like 200. So you're a popular guy.
Well, I get no shares or likes. I get some views. Like that one we did a month ago, we got over 45,000 views. Not one phone call. It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So, Kirk, let's get started, and
Sure.
we're gonna go thread by thread, post by post, and I'll do the introduction. Then you can speak. You can stop me at any time.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm nervous as hell. Not because of the stuff we're talking about, because it's all provable. It's I think my story might get out, and that's what makes me nervous. It's been 5 years, trying to do this every day. So that's my goal, is to never say my story again. Believe it or not, I don't want to talk about it, but we have to help Canada. So thank you again. Carry on. Sorry.
All right. So the story, we're breaking it up into 3 parts. First, we're going to talk about the crime, like what actually happened. Then we're going to talk about the pushback you faced when you tried to blow the whistle, and finally, how they came and tried to destroy you.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So you joined the subcomponent of the Canadian Army Reserve called the Canadian Rangers. Rangers work in remote regions carrying out search and rescue work and sovereignty patrol.
And my father as well in 2010, October 2010.
Your father was working with you at the time?
He joined the Rangers as well a day after me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's a sort of a family thing. Cool.
Yeah.
So there's 5 Canadian Rangers patrol groups. If we say CRPG, it's basically the Rangers. There's 5 of them in Canada. You were registered to one of them, the 4th one, 4 CRPG.
Yeah.
And it's in Ronge, Saskatchewan. It's a tiny town in northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah, correct.
All right. Now we're just going to go over some of the actors. The person in charge of this 4th Rangers patrol group was Lieutenant Colonel Russell Meads.
Correct.
And he was the person in charge of 42 groups as a commanding officer.
As far as I know, yeah.
And for people like me who don't really understand how the military works, Lieutenant Colonel is sort of like a middle management. It's not general officer.
He was as far as we went in the Rangers, as far as I know. He's like the boss. Yeah.
Okay. Then there was also somebody beneath him. The individual in charge of a subset of the patrol groups was Sergeant Major Michael Gilliard, and he reported directly to Lieutenant Colonel Russell Meads.
As far as I know, and from the documentation I have, yeah, that's who his superior was. Yeah.
Okay. And this is sort of like one of our good guys in this story.
It's hit and miss. Again, I actually had nothing against Lieutenant Colonel Meads. It just I thought he was a good guy. He's involved in something way bigger than what I knew, right? So, yeah.
All right. So moving on, beneath Sergeant Major Michael Gilliard, there was another person. He was the Ronge Patrol Group, the person in charge of the Ronge Patrol Group, Patrol Commander, and Sergeant Jim Searson.
Correct. Just give me 1 sec. Ivan, I'm doing an interview. You have to call me later.
Yep, no problem. It's okay, mate.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
And yeah, so just so you know, there was also 3 warrant officers above Jim, but they were below Michael. And as far the highest rank we go in the Rangers is sergeant, and that was Jim Searson. Yeah.
Okay. And then another player in this story is the chief of the Indian band in Ronge, Tammy Cook Searson, and she was the wife of Sergeant Jim Searson.
Correct, and also a Liberal nominee. I'm sure you'll get to that.
That comes later, though, not at the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
All right. So the main issue, like your main argument, is that there's potential money fraud, money laundering, like they're stealing taxpayer money.
That's what I was uncomfortable with. Yeah,
Okay.
very.
And as you explained it to me, typically the way you work, you got to go out work, whatever, 10 hours fighting forest fire, search and
Yeah,
rescue. And then when you come back, you fill out something called an equipment usage rates pay form. So you say
yeah,
10 hours of work, $1,000, whatever it is.
yeah,
You sign that form, you give that to command reviews it, signs it back, and pays you out.
yeah. And ideally, you're supposed to, yes, sign it when the task is done. Yeah, but yeah, you're doing good. Sorry,
No, it's fine. So it's like an invoice, right? Like you
Yeah,
don't give the invoice before service is rendered.
correct. Yeah, you can give like if you're gonna take your truck or your quad, you can write that down, and then they'll fill it out later. But yeah, typically it's supposed to be done after the work. Yeah.
And then, but this is how it actually worked. They'd just be like, Kirk, you're busy. Why don't you just sign this blank form and we'll fill out the paperwork and we'll pay you. So,
Yep.
you sign a blank form, you go work, you come back, the form is filled out and they pay you your whatever, $1,000.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, there's technically nothing wrong with that in a perfect world.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's honest, but that was the thing, and it concerned me. I was worried about the fraud, and I didn't want to be part of it. So I voiced my concerns, and it didn't go well for me.
Right, but the fraud kind of comes later because they kept
Yep.
losing these EUR forms,
Yep.
right? So you sign a blank form, and they're like, "Oh, we misplaced it. Can you sign another one? Can you sign another one?"
Yep.
So again, this comes down to what you were saying. You cannot prove that they used those forms and cashed out, but it presents the opportunity for fraud.
But yes, but the military could disprove it. They could prove it, but they haven't. So.
You mean they have the paperwork and they're
Well,
not?
I would assume they have some paperwork. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but like I said, if they could have proved me wrong, they would have done it 5 years ago.
So this is the picture of one of the forms, the EUR forms. But you said that you were on training in Vancouver, and a couple of the rangers would discuss how it was an open secret that these things were open to fraud.
Oh yeah, it was. One guy said, you can write cash your own checks, so. And not just for patrol management, like sergeants, they're the ones that can authorize this stuff. Yeah, it started off where we had to get everything pre-authorized by Esquimalt, and then when Jim Searson got in there, the chief's husband, all of a sudden went to he could decide who got paid what and who went where, which is very odd. But they had an agreement, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for fraud, I guess.
Yeah.
You told me about another case, Stanley Mission boat exercise. So there was 33 people. So you signed 33 blank EUR forms.
Yeah.
But only 8 of you went. So there was like 25 of these forms just floating around.
Yeah, we signed pay sheets and EUR sheets, yes.
And I think you told me it's like potentially it's like $100,000 that
it would have been. Yeah, they could have kept 100,000. Like they come up with ammo boxes of $100 bills. That's how we got paid for EUR, and yeah, it was just too open to fraud, and it just really bothered me because I was raised very honestly, by hardworking people, so it concerned me.
Another alternative, you said, again, there's no evidence of this, but they could have used the money and siphoned it off to Tammy Searson's Liberal campaign.
Yeah, well, that's what I believe happened because it just all makes sense. Jimmy, okay. Just one thing here. Yeah, on this exercise, sure, 8 of us went on the exercise, but all 33 I believe they got paid as if they were on the exercise. So they got wages, but no, I don't believe they got EUR. Like my second in command told me that he actually got paid as if he went on the exercise, but he didn't go on the exercise. So.
Okay, that's a different level, different type of corruption. That's just.
Yeah. Well, no, it's the same thing because he signed EUR. So if he got paid as if he was on the exercise, I assume he would have also got paid the EUR, but he never got the EUR. Somebody else got it. So we'll leave it at that. Again,
All right.
that's up. Yeah.
I'm just going to go over some other things that you and I discussed. You mentioned how the Liberal Party was grooming Chief Tammy Cook-Searson as a nominee. And like we said earlier, the money could have been used for her campaign.
True. And also, if you go back through in 2019, you can see the CBC, CTV, they had reporters reporting on Tammy, saying how she's a shoo-in to win a seat in Parliament because of her whatever past dealings. But, you know, she's got a bunch of fake doctorates. She was in charge of like Cameco, HR, on the trustees for Sask Power and the trustees for the Saskatoon Airport and such. Like, she's a really high power woman, and my story would not help her case or anybody else in Parliament, right? So, yeah.
Another possibility is that someone's blackmailing the Liberal Party because it's just a scandal if it got out.
It's definitely a scandal if it got out. Again, I didn't want this. I didn't wish this. I wish I could have been proven wrong 5 years ago, but it is a scandal, and it's not a victimless crime. It's my whole family. Just, I'm sure we'll get to that.
And the last one I'll just go over. It's possible that you're getting kickbacks to the Liberal Party. So you give somebody 100,000, you get back like 20,000.
Well, I see that. I see it on TV. Like Trudeau sponsored a pastry shop or something in Ottawa, and then they went through his books, and it shows that he got $500,000 to start this business, and he donates like $100,000 to the Liberal campaign. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, the potential is just, yeah.
That's what SNC Lavalin was part of their case, was also that.
Well, yeah, you know, again, it just they seem to pick the weaker of the conspiracies, or I mean, not conspiracies of fraud to process, and SNC was weaker than this one for sure. So,
here's another one. You were with 10 people from your section, so 10 Rangers, and again, they brought this up. Brought these issues to you. You reported it to Sergeant Major Michael Gilliard.
Yeah.
Gilliard gave you $4,000 in cash and said the money's between you and I. And that's when you went to Jim Searson.
Yeah. So I had a few of my people in my section complain to me, like, Kirk, what's going on here? Like, they were concerned too, because I went and talked to them, and I said, look, I'm too scared. I'm worried this is too open for fraud. And then Gilliard said, Kirk, you're as good as 10 Rangers. You know, you get up in the morning, you start everybody's sleds and fires and stuff. You know, you deserve all of this. First he said, who's complaining? I said, well, I am. You know, I don't want to get anyone else involved. I just sent you some messages saying, don't tell Jim we don't want to face reprisal. Like, this was before I even faced reprisal. So everyone knew, you know, if you speak up, you're going to get kicked out or worse. And yeah, so yeah, that was Michael Gilliard. Money was between you and I. I'm like, Jesus, you know, that was it. I got him, and I went to talk to Jim after, and Jim says, you happy? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess, you know, happy that I now have the evidence that can destroy this corruption. But, you know, I wasn't happy. It was just, it had to be done. You know, I thought everyone would stand up, but nope.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very hard for ordinary people like me to believe this level of Middle East corruption.
Yeah.
What do we got next? September 2018.
Just go back. You got more coming. DFT, that's direct deposit. So when I first started, we were all cash for the EUR, and I said, you know, that's open for fraud. So they switched it to half cash and half direct deposit for our EUR. And then I went to work in Alberta for Schlumberger and stuff like that for like a year and a half. And when I came back, they were back to 100% cash again. I'm like, oh, you guys are back to cash. I think that was in 2013 is when I come back. So
it's less of a paper trail.
Yeah. I tried to get a paper trail started. They didn't want one.
Well, obviously, if you're siphoning money off, if you're skimming money off the top, you don't want a paper trail.
Yeah.
September 2018, Sergeant Searson informed a group of 50 Rangers that Prime Minister Trudeau had promised his wife $16 million for wellness center.
Yeah, correct. We were on an exercise that was Lieutenant Meade's in BC, a quad exercise, probably the best exercise of my life. And actually, another friend says, Kirk, you remember Jim announced that the $16 million his wife was going to get, and that was September of 2018.
And just to be clear, like there was nothing illegal about that. That was just a donation for Trudeau.
Yeah, well, she's the chief. They wanted a wellness center. It makes sense. I'll let you ask the questions.
No, that's fine. I guess where I was going with that is it was subject to Jim Searson staying on as patrol commander.
Yeah, and Jim told me, like, we were best friends, and he says, Kirk, I have to be patrol commander for my wife to get this 16 million, and for her to be a Liberal candidate. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with Rangers? And I told him right there, is that, well, you have to win the election, which is in October, a month after this. And let's just say we never saw eye to eye after that.
Okay, so first of all, Rangers are kind of unique in that you elect your own patrol commander
every 2 years to stop any of this nepotism or fraud. Like, makes sense. It's in our constitution, every 2 years. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. This is not some formality. This is actually in the Constitution.
It's written. Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think it was required for him to stay on to get the $16 million?
Because there's a lot of money being laundered there. It just makes it easier. And also, they knew if I was to get elected as the patrol commander, I wouldn't partake in the fraud. I would expose it. And they had to stop that at all costs, which they obviously did.
Yeah, that kind of, you and I were talking about this as well. This is the next sort of question. This is probably something that was going on for a long time, and no government wants this to break on their administration.
Correct, I believe so. Yeah.
So,
but also, I believe the military is unaudited in most respects, just like Indian bands. Trudeau actually made it so they didn't have to be audited. So, kind of makes sense.
Trudeau made who doesn't have to be audited?
The bands don't have to audit anymore. In 2015, I believe he made that rule.
So you're familiar with the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions?
Yeah. I don't know.
What I mean, like, even if they had the best of intentions in making it so you don't have to audit these bands or the military,
yeah,
you just create a situation where if there's going to be fraud, that's where it's going to happen.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to trust everybody. I used to think everyone was honest and ethical, especially in the military, especially in the RCMP. I actually thought MSM was honorable and ethical, but over the last 5 years, I've proved it to be the exact opposite. It's not. Well, here's this: they could either be unethical, like corrupt, or they can just be cowards, and either one of them shouldn't be in a leadership position, in my opinion.
All right, so I'm just going to read this next one. I'm going to stress that you suspect that every patrol commander prior to Sergeant Searson, like, they knew there was money laundering taking place. They either they weren't involved, or they were involved, but they looked the other way.
I believe that is a fact. Yeah.
And
keep in mind, all these guys were my friends at one time, and I trusted them with my life, and vice versa. It just, money changes everything.
What I was going to say is, if you're a government in power and you're going to give a legitimate donation of $16 million, and there's this potential PR disaster, you don't want it to blow up, so you want the same guy in power.
Yeah, and we'll get to me warning Trudeau, but carry on.
All right. So I don't know. Next up is, I guess, the election. So as we mentioned, you need a constitutionally mandated election every 2 years for 4 section leaders, 1 patrol commander, and 1 second in command.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. For all leadership positions, every 2 years, it's a re-election. Yeah.
Okay.
In the Constitution.
And then, do you want to go over what's the steps, the process, the Legion kind of thing?
Okay. Yeah. So we have our elections in October. We go to the Legion. Like, all of our meetings are in the Legion. All of our sign-ins were usually in the Legion. And Jim had advertised that the election was going to be in the Legion that Sunday. However, they canceled it, and they just had a election for my section leader, not everybody else. Like, it was completely illegal. But the sergeant major gave everybody the Constitution because he knew what was going on with me, and he told me I had to expose it. But So he gave everyone the Constitution, so they didn't have an excuse not to know. But instead, I think it was 14 people completely disregarded the Constitution and just had a fake election to get me voted off as a ranger, as being of no use, of no value. And a week before that, I was the most valuable ranger there was. But or a few weeks, like I did the rescue just at end of August. So how they went, I went from being one of the top rangers to someone that couldn't be in the group is just because I raised my voice. It's all documented, by the way.
So I'm just going to reframe that. They did not hold the election that they were supposed to hold, the one for the one patrol commander, but
Yep.
they did hold an election that just didn't exist, the one to vote you off the island.
Yeah, Jimmy made up an election. Again, it was at a campfire instead of at the Legion. I got calls from people in my section. What's going on? I thought there was an election tonight, but they canceled the whole meeting. So everyone was like, "What the hell is going on?" But nobody stood up. It just no one wants to rock the boat, right? And I don't blame them now.
Nobody wants the trouble.
Yeah, and
So
I'll be honest. Most of them are Native people. They either work for the band or they work for the government. That's the only people we had in the Ronge. I'll be honest. It's just too weird that no one wanted to risk their jobs. So
yeah, you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the patrol commander, they didn't hold an election. Sergeant Searson stays on. The guy above Searson, or two ranks above, Lieutenant Colonel Russell Meads, he was pressured or under pressure. He investigates himself, and even he concludes that the election was not above board.
Yes, it was in one of my grievances, and they stated, yes, the election was false, but you're still gone. I've had zero contact with anyone in 5 years. Like, it's just funny. I see the chief is still wearing as if she's commanding at the Remembrance Day. I saw her wearing her stripes here. So yeah, they keep it in the family pretty good.
And earlier, I mentioned that this guy's sort of the good guy, Sergeant Major Michael Gilliard. Before this election, he's the one that sent around that electronic copy of the Constitution.
Correct. And he's the one that told me I had to report this. He says, Kirk, you have to report and expose the corruption. And I don't know if he realized just how bad it was, but he wiped his hands clean, and I agreed to it, which, he's given me a direct order, and I accepted, so it's still my duty. He's since, everybody since retired, it's like being an undercover where all of your handlers get retired or disappeared. It's just very weird.
So I guess he didn't want the headache of getting involved directly, but he's at least realized that this was not the way things were supposed to operate.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he was in a very hard place because if he speaks up, he loses his pension as well, right? And he's a career, he's the one that told me that Harjit Sajjan was a good guy. They served together in Afghanistan. So I'm like, okay, well, if he thinks he's good, then maybe he is, but turned out not so much. So I can't judge these people. That's up to the military police or under the Code of Service Discipline, it's military courts to decide. I would love to testify. I would still love to be proven wrong. It's just not going to happen.
And before going on to how you tried to blow the whistle, is there anything else in this story we left out?
I have lots more documentation, lots of emails back and forth. I have people complaining about the election, people worried that they're going to face reprisal. People say, yeah, no, they threatened my dad as well, or like these are other people telling me I'm not wrong. And there's a lot of concern, but no one, when I made the steps, I thought 30 people would stand up behind me and say, Kirk's right. But slowly but surely, every single one of them said, I see nothing wrong, unfortunately.
One other thing, you've talked about how a lot of these people were band members, and they're kind of dependent on their jobs, so they don't stick their head up. You also told me that there are a lot of these guys are Afghan veterans. How is that significant?
No, just the leadership of the Rangers for CRPG. Like they're all like, I don't consider myself a vet. Sure, I have a service number and sure, whatever. But these guys are trained killers where I'm not. I was wondering why all these big burly guys are commanding the Rangers. Well, basically, they're protecting their assets and their money. You know, they're making sure that everything rolls. And you know, I got threats. It just you know, yeah, like these guys, they're trained killers protecting the Rangers, you know, and so that's what I had to worry and still have to worry about to this day. So
I'm curious, was it like were these great salt of the earth human beings that you worked with, or was it like a hostile work environment?
no, no, it was good. It was great. You know, I used to say I never met a bad Ranger, but all of a sudden they all turned on me at once, like or not turned on me. They just quit talking to me. And I know like these guys are good people, bush people. It just when they were confronted with this, they wanted nothing to do with it, and they were willing to sacrifice. You know, I believe I'm a victim. You know, like collateral damage for reporting this in my own country. Like instead of doing the right thing and say, yeah, Kirk's right, or let's prove Kirk wrong, it's radio silence for 5 years. Nobody's talked to me, which
Yeah.
kind of to me kind of proves a bit of guilt.
So let's head on over to the next part of the story, which is your attempts to share this with the media and the government.
Sure.
So I just wanted to. This is something I've come to. This is my opinion, and government, the legislature specifically, it's not just to write laws. Like the legislature also has a responsibility to people, sort of in a way that the court does. So that when you go to your MP and your MP says not my responsibility, to me that's not technically true. If elements of the government or the army are breaking the law or doing unethical things, you have a responsibility to bring it to the parliament.
100%. And I've seen like Rachel Blaney go up as the veterans whip there for NDP, talk about a lot of veteran stories, but for mine, not a peep. In fact, she blocked me. And that's the thing. They don't have to tell my story. They just have to say, hey, can you people in Parliament look up the story of Kirk Riese? All you have to do is Google my name and my story is there. So, and plus, after all the politicians I've talked to, not one will mention my name. You know, we're talking Conservatives, Liberals, NDP. Green Party was the first people I contacted, who coincidentally is the first people that called the RCMP on me. But I'm always very polite. I'm not threatening. I just say the facts, and to that, the facts scare the shit out of most people, and I don't blame it. But it's still facts. So, they did make groups like the Independent Disclosure Office, where whistleblowers are supposed to call the IDO. Public Integrity Commissioner of Canada, Joe Friday, the Auditor General, the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan, who was a friend of mine. He told me to phone the RCMP Ombudsman, and that day I did was the day my life really turned to shit. And I took their advice. Like these are people I trusted, and they said, "No, you have to report it to the Ombudsman." As soon as I did that, everything turned sideways. I was suspended for a year for reporting this. Like it says right there, no one shall face reprisal for reporting wrongdoing. Well, I think that needs an amendment because that is not the factual. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the IDO, Independent Disclosure Office. This is a department within the Canadian Armed Forces which handles, misconduct.
So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go up the chain of command. So basically, I had to report to Lindsay Blair, was the 2IC, with my concerns, and if he can't solve them, Jim Searson's supposed to solve them, and if he can't solve them, Michael Gilliard's supposed to solve them, and if he can't solve them, Lieutenant Colonel Russell Meads is the last resort. So I tried all that, and not one of them would, Meads shook my hand. He says, "You did everything you were supposed to do. Unfortunately, you're the only one." And that was in February of 2019. I tried to give my briefcase of evidence, and they slid it back. They said, "This isn't the place." I'm like, "Well, where is the place? Like, this isn't my job. I'm an electrician by trade, Sure, I had a big company, like a company with a lot of guys working and stuff, but this was just a volunteer thing. Like Rangers was just to give back to Canada. It wasn't my career. But yeah, I thought I could find someone, and I went through everything. Still no response. It's just bizarre.
So
I think they deal with the smaller stuff, but not the stuff that's national security like this is. Like, this is huge national security problem. Even CSIS, instead of investigated, they phoned the base in the Esquimaux, and then Esquimaux phoned me like, "Why are you phoning CSIS?" I'm like, "Well, because I
How does
have to. That's my
yeah.
it's my duty to report this. You know, I'm still trying to find the proper authorities, which I just cannot."
So you mentioned one thing about the IDO, Independent
Yeah.
Disclosure Office. This is shortly before that really funny election of yours where you got booted off. You gave them the information. They didn't really look at it. They didn't really ask you any questions, and they said, "There's nothing here."
No, they said well, their server went down. So they phoned me back like this on the 17th. They phoned me back on the 20th. They said, "Kirk, if this is a fact and you're getting dismissed, you have to go file your grievances before you're dismissed, or else you can't grieve anything." So he says, "You have to go to CFB Edmonton to report this." So I get in my car with my kid, scared shitless, you know, because I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. Went to Edmonton, tried to file the grievances with these guys are special forces. I phoned my friend Travis, who's special forces. I says, "This guy legit, Billy Bolin." He's a good guy, you know, he'll do you right. No, he didn't. You know, and then I asked Billy, no, he trained Travis his whole career. And then I gave them some facts. They were like, "Holy shit, this is level 3. It's going straight to Ottawa." But then they didn't know the rules of the Rangers, you know, because we got different creeds and codes and everything. And so he says, "Go for lunch." So I went for lunch at the Legion, and I realized they're not getting what I'm throwing down here. So I sent them a few more emails. When I got back to CFB Edmonton, they were just pacing back and forth saying, "We can't help you. You know, go back to Ronge." I'm like, "What?" He says, "No, we just can't help you right now, you know." And then I find out later that he joined the Rangers. Billy Bolin was now a Ranger. You know, it's just very coincidental. And you know, when I was trying to get it investigated at CFB Esquimaux, Lieutenant Colonel Meade says, "Well, it's going to be Dundern's going to look after that with the military police, Dobrich or whatever." He says, "Oh yeah, I know him." So they all know each other. It's just very coincidental again. And the thing was, I was trying to quit originally, and then until they said, and when Mohegan came to the Laurent to investigate this, he says, "Well, you have to quit, or you're going to be 5F released." Well, as soon as he said that, I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not quitting then," because I've been documenting everything, and he just supposed to. I think he did cry a bit because he knew I wasn't going to give up. You know, and when he says, "Kirk, think of your children, think of your babies. You've stepped on too many toes. This is way bigger than you think," you know. I said, "Well, that's not my problem. My issue is I have to report it to him," which I did, and that's where it ended. So but in our creed, we have to find the proper authorities because it never went anywhere. So I still have to find out, and I still like all it would take is someone over a lieutenant colonel to contact me and say, "Kirk, give me your information." Then my job would be done. And I've been trying that for like I just got a letter back here from the provost marshal. And they're saying, "Well, we investigated it." They investigated. They never asked me any questions. How can they they start and close these investigations without asking me any questions? It's just beyond me. And I'm the star witness. Zero. Like they won't I thought 5 years ago when they found out where I was after I was okay, that's another story, but I thought they'd send a helicopter to come straighten this out. Nope, nothing. Yeah.
So the Public Integrity Commissioner's Office. This is it's a oversight committee. They have oversight over the federal government, but they report to the Parliament. What happened when you reached out to them?
I said it's. I think I sent you the responses. They basically, yeah, you faced extreme reprisal. They mentioned the names: Lieutenant Colonel Meads, Lindsay Blair, James Shearson. But he says it's not my problem. You know, so he won't investigate. I find out later that he was nominated by Justin Trudeau years ago, and I'm like, okay, well that makes sense why he won't investigate. So I asked them, like, well, who will investigate this? Like, what's your counterpart? They don't know. I'm like, what? You know, so I just kept trying everybody, different politicians, different like Auditor General was supposed to investigate after 21 days, but not a response. You know, there's a lot of money. There's millions and millions of dollars. I know that's nothing compared to the scandals nowadays, but again, like I said, they're willing to sacrifice my life to protect these thieves. Oh yeah, there's the letter. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't read the whole thing, but suffice
Yeah,
it to say, like this is you mentioned how they're unauditable. Like
yeah,
this is it's almost like you could think of it as of like a CIA kind of
yeah,
offshore bank account. They don't want you taking that away from them.
yeah. And you look at the dates. Like it's March of 2019. You know, that's only 2 months into my plight. They could have stopped this years ago. Like they should have stopped it. Instead, they're like, we want nothing to do with this guy, and then they went full reprisal. You know, so yeah. Again, all my stuff is available on Facebook or X, or phone me. You know, it didn't take you long to figure this out. You know, you're a very smart man, and you sat me down and you're able to keep me calm enough to talk about this, because it really upsets me. And talking about this, and it's been like this for 5 years. You know, they don't re-traumatize victims, but in my case, it's daily. Not that you're traumatizing me. I appreciate your help, but it's the only way to get the truth out. But I don't like talking about it yet.
Uh,
Yeah, right.
this is this something that started in 2015, or did it just maybe get worse in
It
2015?
started in, well, no, it was going on before, but I didn't start connecting the dots really until 2015, 2016, 2017. 2018, and then 2018 it got really bad. Like Jim was going to Vancouver to talk to the lieutenant colonel all the time and stuff, and every time he come back he was different, and I could see that they were turning against me, and I actually reported it. Nothing ever come of it. So yeah.
Have you met anybody else in the army that's talked about wrongdoing, maybe from decades past?
Actually, through the whistleblower Canada group or whatever, I went through some of their cases, and I actually phoned a guy who was in there, and I says, hey, this is gonna sound weird, but what happened to you? Like, everything okay? And I said, my name's Kirk Riese. He's like, oh, are you the ranger? So he heard my story, and I asked him what happened, and he asked me who who my commanding officer was, and I said Lieutenant Colonel Russell Meads. He's like, no way. I'm like, why is that? He says, oh, the stuff I got on that guy, because he was an investigator, you know, and they ruined his life too, but he was able to get someone to investigate. He said he went to the CFB at Esquimalt. He was supposed to have a 3-day meeting or whatever. It took him a few hours, and they said, nope, this is over. You're retired. Here's your money. Here's your gag order. So he didn't want to talk about it. And I didn't want to make him talk about it. So there's cover-ups all the time. And this goes back to Anita and Aunt, you know. So that's who, like, first, Julie Raybould was the second for Department of National Defense, then Sergeant Sajin, and then it moved on to Anita Anand, and then now it's Bill Blair. But they keep changing everybody out. So by the time it gets to an investigation, it's got to be restarted. It's just, I'll be honest, I kind of gave up after I got out of the mental hospital, because I knew they can do whatever they want to me, you know, and no one's going to save me. So either way, yeah, this Green Light Committee was me trying to warn Trudeau that he had a corrupt band chief as a Liberal nominee, and they didn't care. They can't
Uh,
say they didn't know about it.
if people don't know what the Green Light Committee is, it's sort of the snitch line internal to the Liberal Party, so they can vet their candidates.
Yeah, yeah. They actually said you can send us anything you want if you think it's going to help. They knew nothing was going to change their mind. Like, yeah,
It did not help.
no.
So this is the section you cited. Have not been engaged in any claim, litigation, or dispute of any sort which is liable to bring controversy or disrepute upon the qualified nomination, contestant, or the party.
Yeah, so they did an investigation by Lieutenant Colonel Meade's friend in Dundurn, but they never asked me any questions. So investigated what, you know? And the thing is, I made it so that I didn't have to get help from any other rangers, because I didn't want to get them in the situation I'm in now. So of course, no one wanted to speak up because they know what situation I'm in now. So, and I have the emails back saying, "Don't mention my name," you know. It's just, like I said, cowards are corrupt. I don't choose. That's not for me to decide.
This is the confirmation of your email to the Green Light
Yeah,
Committee.
that's just one of several. I got lots.
Kirk, before moving on, it just occurred to me, Lieutenant Colonel Meade's He made the news, something about Somalia, what far right extremism. You're saying it's probably all fake, but there was something going on there.
No, well, this I heard he was a British soldier that came to Canada after the Somalia incident investigation, where I believe he was investigated, but he was found not guilty. Basically, he was a guy from near northern Saskatchewan that murdered Somalian civilian and kind of bragged about it. A chief's son, actually, from Lalash, I think it was. But so you know, and then he gets in charge of the Ranger Patrol, which is very weird. But he was also investigated for far right extremism back then, and then again in 2019, he made the news CBC for being in charge of the Rangers, which they claim was a far right extremism group, which I do not believe that. I believe it, if anything, it's far left. But and again, I don't think Lieutenant Colonel Meads is a racist or anything like that. He seemed like a good guy. Like I met him on exercise. Like I actually looked up to him. He's tall and tough, and was a good. I thought he was a good leader, but I think there's some background noise with them. Yeah.
So the story goes on. What do we got? We contacted two officers here. You're contacting the office of the Prime Minister.
Yeah. So at one point, I was told by Sergeant Major that Trudeau is the boss. Like he's the commander in chief. So again, it is my duties to find the proper authorities. I thought it was him. So I was like, here, I'll warn him to let him know he's got potential issues with this candidate and what's going on with me. He'll want to know because he's got to protect his soldiers, right? Instead, I got the response, it's not our problem, falls under the Harjit Sajjan, who also said they'll look into it, which I never got a phone call. I've never got a phone, but I can't believe they actually emailed me back, which is bizarre. Yeah. Yeah, like right there, I'm saying they tried to bribe me. Tell them
right. I have the transcript here, but the bribe you're referring to is that $4,000 we talked about.
Yeah. Well, they were. Yeah.
And I believe we have the response. They wrote you back politely, but pretty much ignored you.
But look at the dates on those. This could have been solved back in March of 2019, and still no contact, no one of authority. And again, I have to say thank you very much for taking the time. It's not your job, but you're doing more than anybody in the Canadian government's done to help me in 5 years, easily.
I believe you did an interview with one of the Rebel News reporters, Mocha or something.
Oh yeah. No, Mocha came to the ship. Really good guy, really smart and fast, and I like him. And again, he's a brave reporter like you are. He saw my stuff. He's like, "Holy shit, Kirk! There's just too much," And he said he's gonna have to come back and do 8 episodes because I got so much of different corruptions. But he didn't. But he did do me a huge favor and did that report. But unfortunately, he didn't show any pieces of documents, and that's been the problem. No one's showing any of my documents, where I think they're critically important, the date wise and everything. It shows that every government agency failed to do what they're supposed to do, like every single one. It's embarrassing, to be honest. So,
speaking of which, here's another government agency. The PMO's office told you to contact the Department of National Defense. So I have my own views on this. It seems a little shady, but what happened when you contacted them?
Pretty much nothing. Yeah, they say send us your stuff, and that's the thing. Like, I can send stuff all day, and they don't respond. So, again, in 2019, the major said, "Kirk, all of your correspondence is monitored. You can't email anything." I'm like, what? Like, but I do believe it to be true. Like, I never get emails. I hardly ever get phone calls. I never got junk email for 3 years. That says something. But all of a sudden, 2 years ago, it kind of opened up again, and that's when I started kind of trying to release my. And I know it's hard for people to follow, but it wasn't meant for them to follow. It was meant for them to get a member of the authorities to contact me back. But zero have, Yeah, like he deserves prison easily, big time.
I hope I don't get his name wrong. Harjit
Harjit Sajjan.
Sajjan.
Yeah.
This
Minister
is
of National Defense. Yeah.
you use the phrase the cabinet shuffle. Like this is what they do. They
Yeah,
string you along until the guy's gone, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we don't know what you're talking about. He's no longer here."
exactly. Yeah, I think the files are burnt, and by then you're timed out. Fortunately, my stuff is all national security, so I don't believe my stuff will time out. And that's a fact, because this is definitely national security. Protecting Canadian sovereignty is part of my job. Protecting the election process, like everything is bad with my situation. Again, all it would have taken is one person to say, "Hey, what's going on with that guy?" Instead, zero. Have me arrested. That's great. Yeah.
Call me biased, but what really pisses me off here is that the government is abdicating its responsibility. All of these people are there to make the government function, but they're just like, no, it's not my problem. Screw
You know
Kirk
what?
Riese.
At this point in 2019, Harjit made a big announcement. They've changed the rules to accommodate Native people that break the code of service discipline to make it less harsh for them. I'm like, what? And then also he says, with Kathy Galt or whatever, they've made it so the elections are transparent, and they're just. I'm proving the elections aren't transparent, and then he goes and writes a big thing saying how democracy is at risk, and they're making everything transparent. Well, bullshit. They didn't. He's just they just talk, and there's no substance to anything, and I can prove it eventually.
So if anybody is asking questions in the comment section, I'll get to them at the end. But I'm going through the thread right now. So after this, you contacted your MLA, Doyle Vermette. He put you in touch with Mr. Riese.
No, yeah. So Doyle Vermette, I've known him for years. Nice guy, but very quiet. He's not going to be rocking any boats or anything like that. And he didn't want nothing to do with my story. So, you're supposed to go to your MLA, which was him. He gave me Georgina's private email, which I contacted, and she responded by accident because she just got into cell service. Bang up, here comes my stuff, and then they blocked me. And then I see her sitting beside the chief when she got $16 million for this wellness center. It just she definitely didn't want to I hate to say it, but she's a Native woman politician. She didn't want to expose, just like Julia or Jody Raybould didn't want to expose any of them. They don't want to, and I didn't want to either. Trust me, I don't want to bring any harm on anybody. I judge every person by their own decisions, not groups of people. But it was her job to report this, and she failed. Instead, she blocked me. And it was the RCMP job to investigate this. Instead, nothing. I'll be adding a bunch of stuff to your threads here. More evidence is required, but when this is over, I just hope people keep following you and keep sharing, because we could do this for a week straight, you and me, to be honest.
No, go ahead. Feel free to add to the thread anything you like. And I totally botched what I was saying. So you contacted your MLA, Doyle Vermette, and he put you in touch with your MP, Georgina. So
yeah, because I tried her emails, I tried Facebook, no responses. Right, finally, so he gave me her personal email. And then bang, she responded, and her responding and doing nothing is not good. And again, I think she's in charge of La Paz, where they had a big shooting, where they again got a whole bunch of money to build a new school and stuff. It's just never ending. I'll leave it at that.
What a cesspool our government is.
I believe you. Yes.
So you then contacted Jennifer Rice, who's the MLA in Bella Bella. She told you to contact. She basically did nothing. She said contact the Civilian Commission for Review, CCR, of the RCMP. They did nothing as well.
Correct. And so then there was another election in I can't remember what year it was, but the Conservatives won. So I contacted them. I can't remember his name. Shoot. But again, they said, well, we want nothing to do with this. Contact the CRCC. Well, I contacted CRCC, and they're underfunded, understaffed. I don't blame them. My stuff is way too big for anybody like them. But basically, everyone just stops talking to me. Or if they're sending emails, I'm not getting them. If that's possible too. Again, I'm on a remote island in the middle of nowhere. It's just weird.
I'm getting a sense that the system is specifically designed so that it cannot handle something this big. So on the one hand, the agencies that are supposed to deal with it, maybe CCR, they're just like, we're going to get crushed. And then on the other hand, the NDP, conservative, liberal, whatever, PPC, Green, any party, they're worried about getting money. And they're like, if we do this, the army is going to just crush us.
Well, if they do anything, what are they gonna do for their next job? Are they trained in anything else? Are they career politicians? That's the thing is they definitely it's career I've heard it many times. It's career ending and it's above our pay grade. RCMP recorded. I got that recorded from 3 different groups of RCMP members, and military police. It's above our pay grade. We can't investigate anything leading to Trudeau. Well, who does? Well, we don't know. Well. And then they say, well, wait till the next election. Well, I've already been Todd Lowen. He's the first guy I contacted in 2018 and 2019 because I served with his brother Greg, and he said his brother's a politician in Alberta for the UCP or whatever. I said, okay, perfect. Tell him my story. He did. He says after the elections, if he wins, he'll deal with it. Well, he won. His response was just keep your nose clean and shut up, and maybe in a couple of years you can get your life back together. That was his response. Instead of saying, hey, let's look at the story of Kirk Riese, because it is an Alberta problem. It's Edmonton, CFB Edmonton. And again, I'm sure he must know somebody. I'm sure all these people must know somebody, but it's just I'm a hot potato, and they're willing to sacrifice my life to protect corrupt politicians. It's simple as that.
Who do we got next? NDP Rachel Blaney. She is in charge of veterans. She's like the veterans whip. She's supposed to take care of veterans. I don't think it went anywhere with her.
No, and you got to listen to recordings from this one. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for them. I'm always polite. I try not to freak everybody out by telling my whole story, just little bits, But they confirmed getting 12 emails over 3 years and doing nothing. And then her response lately, she's retired this next election with her pension. So she blocked me on X instead of, and again, all they have to do is mention my name in Parliament and this will be exposed. Instead, I'm blocked. I don't think that's right. I'm never abusive. I don't swear to anybody or anything like that. It's just, yeah. And it's their job. It's their job to help me. Yeah.
How funny would it be if they played this live stream in the middle of Parliament?
Oh man, I would pay someone my whole bank account of like $50 to play that, and that's what I was thinking. Like I believe I have to go to Ottawa to try to get my story there. I don't know how I'm going to get in. I thought CPAC. I got a nice little 1,500 word essay, written, and that should wake everybody up. But I get 0 shares, 0 likes. It's just bizarre. Yeah.
Okay, what did you do next? You tried getting through to Miss Blaney of Veteran Affairs through her colleague, Mr. Taylor Backrack. That's the MP for his current riding of Skeena. Nothing happened.
Yeah, well, here in Bella Bella, they have a highly illegal power grid. I'm a master electrician by trade, and I believe it's costing the Health Nation millions of dollars a year, and the health problems that it's causing, and the environmental problems it's causing. I thought they would be all over fixing it, but and I even went to the Green Party, and the recordings are there. And I thought they would be all over that, but because of my military story, they can't expose that, because then my story will come out and expose everything. I got Taylor recorded over in Bella Bella there. He's saying, yeah, what do you want me to do about it? Well, you're the member of Parliament. Go. I said, talk to your boss, Jagmeet. Jagmeet's not going to do anything. I'm like, what? He's in charge of the NDP. Like, any one of these people have to do is stand up in a crowd and say, let Kirk Riese speak, or look up the story of Kirk Riese or David Drover, for example. Google it. Like with technology, it's right there. So any politician can Google who is Kirk Riese, and bang, there comes my story. And they can pick anyone they want of the over 50 interviews I've done. It's just they don't want to have anything to do. They just want to get elected. They just want to get paid. Like, this isn't their job. Well, this isn't my job either. You know, this is above my pay grade. I was the lowest ranking person in the Canadian military. And I can expose this. Imagine what the people, like the generals, can do. Like Admiral Norman. Remember him? They ruined his life too, and then they gave him $20 million to shut up. You know, that was over the shipbuilding thing. But yeah, like it's funny. They'll represent a general that's going under for sexual assault, but they won't represent a ranger that's trying to expose corruption. You know, this is bizarre.
I get a sense that there's a walling off of democracy. So sorry for the echo, but like, we vote these people into office, these elected representatives, but then they turn around and say, "There's nothing I can do. I have no power." Like, what do you mean you have no power? The legislature is supreme.
No, here's the power. Hey, buddy, look up the story of Kirk Riese or David Drover, you know, or Michael Jackson from Saskatchewan. That's all they have to do. But no one will even, they're too scared to even mention any one of our names because what we can expose. It blows my mind, the cowardice or the corruption. Like, I don't know what they have on these people, but I always thought these guys had balls, you know, courage, but no, they don't. They shouldn't be in politics if they don't have courage or ethics or honor or integrity or loyalty to Canada. They shouldn't be in politics, and I prove that every day. Yeah, here's another one.
Yeah, then you turn to Michael Barrett of the Conservative Party. The point I'm getting across with this one is it's not any one party. It's not the leftist party. It's just
no. And I went to Michael Barrett because he's on the committees going after these fraud things, and Cooper and Larry Brock. You know, I went at all three of them. You know. And I get a response, 17 minutes I talked on the phone. And at the end of it, this is funny. I don't think he posted there was 6 pages from that one. At the end of it, I was like, "What's your name again?" He said, "Randy." "What's your last name?" "Oh, just Randy from Michael Barrett's office." So every friggin' party has their own Randy. You know, it's bizarre.
Was this the infamous cocaine Randy?
No, they have their own Randy. It's the Randy that won't help a disabled veteran ranger, you know.
I wonder if that transcript is here. Man, this was a long conversation you had.
Yeah, it was 17 minutes. And yeah, unfortunately, it was the last page where it's half of the page, but it's on my X. People can add me. People can contact me. I answer my phone. I answer my emails. Not that I ever get any. Like, I got nothing to hide. I have everything to prove. Like, I'm just trying to finish my duty to Canada, get legally released, and try to get my life back. You know, that's all I'm trying to do. I don't know. That's it. Like, it's my duty. It still is until I'm released. I guess, you know, sucks not getting paid, but that's someday.
So this is another cabinet shuffle with Jody Rayborn. What happened here?
Okay, that was when I first started my stuff. I sent them the information. Then I find out she's in charge of the Veterans Affairs, and she's second for the Department of National Defense. I'm like, Jesus, you know. And then of course the SNC thing pops up like that the week after, and then she's gone. I'm like, oh, okay. I can't remember the timeline, but it was something like that. It's questionable. And then here's the thing: they can always say, "Well, I didn't get the messages." Well, that's true. But if everyone messaged them and say, "Hey, what about Kirk Riese?" or, you know, "How come you guys aren't investigating him?" Like, I think it was illegal for her to be in charge of Veterans Affairs and Department of National Defense at the same time, because it's a conflict of interest. Because the Veterans Affairs, "Oh no, we're an arm's distance." Well, I highly doubt that, and that's what they all say. CRCC, we're an arm's distance away from there. Well, I highly doubt that. I think they're a lot more connected than anyone can imagine. Or else, why wouldn't they help me? Like I said, all I wanted to do and ever is just give my documents and be done with it. It's in my psychological evaluation. Kirk has to give his documentation to the proper authorities, hopefully within a 2-week period. That was March 28th, 2019, from a military doctor, and no one will take the documentation. So they're going against the doctor's orders that is trying to give me my life back and my mental health back, but they don't care. They're just quite happy to keep ruining my life. Either way. yeah, she could have stood up. Instead, everyone says she's got integrity. Yeah, right. My opinion. She's also on the same boards of Tammy Cook-Searson. Like they're in the same pictures together.
Oh, okay.
So what a coincidence.
What do we got next? This is the last example. You contacted law enforcement December 20th, 2019. Oh, this tell this one. This is the one.
Okay,
with the
yeah.
guns.
So I'm getting ready. I got my case built. I got my evidence secured. I got enough. I know I got all the proof I need. Bang. They say they're going to have an election, and just for me, which is against the rules. So I had an RCMP in my section. He's like, Kirk, what the fuck's going on? And I told him, he's like, okay, well, you got to report this. I said, well, Lindsay, this is career ending for Jimmy and Lindsay, right? Like career ending. If this ever got out, they're done. They're in military prison. So he tells me, like, Kirk, he's traveling around with his handguns like Lindsay does. Like he's a gun fanatic. And he says, Kirk, you got to call it in. So it's our duty in the military. If you have someone going through psychological problems, you have to report it just in case. So I phone 911, report it, say he's driving with, and I was worried. I was worried for my life, and so was the guy, the RCMP in my patrol. He was worried for my life too. He's like, Kirk, if he goes south on anybody and you didn't report it, it's going to be on you. So I did what I was supposed to do, reported it. The 911 got back to me. They said they're looking into it. Well, 10 days later, New Year's Eve, the RCMP come to my house with my son's there with my grandchild, and the RCMP threatens me. Riley, his name was, threatens to have me charged for harassment for trying to do my duty and exposing fraud. Like he comes to my house and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I did everything I was supposed to do. There's a 911 call. I wish people would get it. And that one probably tells everything. But instead, they turned it around on me and said, Kirk is losing his mind. Kirk shouldn't have guns. Kirk shouldn't be in the Rangers. And Jimmy said, Kirk, my wife's the chief. I'm in charge of the Rangers. Everybody loves us. No one's going to believe a thing you say. He said that to me, his ex-best friend, He also said I was going to be killed by drug dealers. Well, that's another story, but it's all documented.
Let's leave that part out.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing, but it touches on something that you don't want to mention.
Yeah.
So, so in ending this, everybody knows my position. Like I think government legislatures are supposed to be leaders and supposed to represent the people, but they've lost that sense of leadership. Anything you want to add before we go on to their attacks on you?
It's funny, but what's his name? Donald Best made a statement of how not to report wrongdoing. Well, he's full of shit. He underestimates the corruption because he was an ex-RCMP, so he knows some of it, but he doesn't have a clue of how bad it is. He's trying to give me advice. I'm like, I did that. Again, they won't sit down for 10 minutes and ask me any questions unless it's live. And of course, when I'm doing lives, I'm very stressed out about it. And like we did an interview and they were supposed to have the documents so people could see. They didn't show one. And so, if you're going to be a whistleblower, make sure you have all the documents, make sure you have recordings, send them to, like I sent USBs to politicians and they'd send them back with a package opened and the USB in there, so it's just funny. Like there is no rules to reporting wrongdoing. I know Pamela Forward from Whistleblower Canada is a very brave woman and she's tried to help me immensely. She's helped me try to get in charge of the provost marshal, and I got a letter back 2 days ago saying, we investigated you. Well, I was never asked any questions, so that's what I want to do. I want to go to Ottawa and I'll go into their office and I'll put it on the desk, here, what do you want to know? And guess what? They're going to shove it back to me and say, we don't want to know anything. That's what they're going to do because it's career ending. It's proven, if you stand up, you're gone. Like I know Jody, she did stand up somewhat and she faced the music, but instead of continuing to expose the corruption, she just said, okay, that's good enough. I'll just be a politician somewhere else. Whoop-de-doo, Yeah.
It's a tough job. It's a tough, cruel world, I should say.
Well, it shouldn't be. If any one of these people did their jobs, my story wouldn't have happened. If anyone would have done their jobs, things would have been different with COVID 4 years ago. It just we would have had a different prime minister if this got out in 2019 easily.
So we're gonna go over to the like the reprisals, and this is where it gets a little bit more tricky to nail down. So there's only a couple
Yep.
of posts. One way they came at you is with the CRA, and it started relatively early, actually, 2000. Well, you say 15 here.
Yep.
There was an incident that you reported. I don't know if you want to mention what that was, but go ahead through this. Tell us what happened.
Okay, well, I mentioned I was on Oplentis 2015 in Ronge, Saskatchewan, fighting fires. They checked my credentials for firefighting. They authorized me to be combat pay to fight fires. They said, you're the only one, and it was in Ronge. The whole town was evacuated, but we got, gotta watch what I say here. Either way, I reported some wrongdoing involving a guy was coming on to a civilian, and she complained to me. I complained to the warrant officer, James Vogel, and he immediately didn't like that. And soon after, he says, okay, you're no longer on the exercise. You're on your own. You're not getting paid. Basically, he trying to get me to quit. I'm like, well, whatever. I kept fighting fires because it was my duty. And I asked for my pay sheets back because I signed a bunch of pay sheets beforehand. He said, well, you don't have to come in every day, your combat pay. So just sign a bunch and we'll deal with it, which I did. Not, it was fires. I wasn't too worried about it. And then I got released from that exercise, and I said, well, can I have my pay sheets back? And he said, no. I'm like, what? Well, they have my signature on it. That's me saying either way, they said I was never on the fires. Actually, today is my last day to grieve that, by the way. I have to get on that. But they said I was never on the fires, yet I have videos of him with my jet ski with the water pump on the back at Dale Tiedeman's cabin, saving his cabin. Like they said I was never on the exercise. But here I have videos. And they all said Kirk wasn't even there. But they did make a mistake, and they admitted that I was helping with the evacuations. So either way, they got themselves in if my story gets out, they'll investigate this and they'll show that they're lying. And that's not good for military to be lying, especially about I'm a civilian. Even if I'm a ranger, I'm still a civilian unless I'm on exercise in uniform on military base or in a military vehicle. So that's the gray area. I should have human rights, but because I was a ranger, apparently I don't. So
Kirk, I just want to refocus this. The CRA went after you.
Yeah.
They said that you didn't file your taxes. Your argument was, well, you never got your T4 from the military. They're saying that they seized $350,000 from your bank accounts. And to this day, you're saying when you go to open up a bank account, they're like, we have no record of a Kirk Riese ever opening a bank
No,
account.
that's right. They took out I had a contract in Estevan. It was a fairly big one, so they sent me a couple $100,000, and they seized that immediately during the fires. I'm not sure why, but it just very coincidentally, the day after I complained. I'm like, holy shit, when will this end? But either way, yeah, I didn't do my taxes because I couldn't get the T4s, and I was just starting my evidence gathering and stuff, so I didn't, either way, when I finally I got my taxes done in 2020, and they say, okay, well, you owe $60,000, which is like, okay, that's I thought it would be a lot less. Well, penalties and penalties. Anyways, penalties. I said, well, just take it out of the $350,000 you seized. And here's the thing. I talked to this one lady, and she said, well, we have no record of it. And I said, well, you don't have a record of it. Well, here. And I rattle off my account numbers with the amounts taken on these days. And she said, well, we don't have that records. And then she punched something in. Oh, there it is. Okay, well, perfect. Give it back. They'll look into it. I phone next week. She no longer works there. And that's been happened to me 3 times now. So I explain everything. And then all of a sudden I call back. They no longer work there. And that's how it's been. And that's just the shuffle. I actually phoned the CRA ombudsman, and they phoned me back and says, we're really sorry this is happening to you. And I said, well, let's remedy it. Oh, we don't know how to remedy it. You know, they're in the business of taking money. They're not in the business of getting money back. But I have my bank records where they seize it. I have the account numbers. Here's how it went. Like every time they'd seize my accounts, I'd say, fuck it, you know, because I was doing this, you know, knowing this was happening. Like in 2017, Atlantis 2017, they seized all my wages from the fires in Williams Lake when I went there to fight fires. And so every time I'd give them my bank account information to get paid, they would seize it. And it was just a joke with me. So I told Gilliard, and it's all recorded, I said, just keep the money. You know, someday I'll get it back. Like, keep it in a pile. Oh, we can't keep putting all your payments to in this pile. I'm like, yes, you can. Either way, they'd send it to me, bang, my accounts would get seized. For example, like when I went to, when they finally found me and I went to CFB Esquimalt to report this. Oh, no, wait, yeah, they paid me 2 days wages for that. February, March. And then they asked for my bank accounts. So I gave them that and they put 2 days wages and then they seized everything. So, you know, I'd have to leave Bella Bella to go get a new bank account all the time. And for example, I got a band check for $6,000. I went to get a new bank account. I said, look, if I put this in there, am I going to be able to get any money? So they phoned the band here and they said, yeah, it's a good check. So they were able to give me $1,000. I put that check in, they gave me $1,000, and then the 5,000 was seized. And it's been like that from 2015 to 2020. In 2020, when I was released, I found out I was released October 1st, but I didn't find out until November that I was released. So Veterans Affairs say, Kirk, we realized the military screwed you up. We say you have dysthymia, which is mild depression, so you can get a payout. So they sent me $130,000 or $120,000 or something like that. It was just before Christmas. So I'm waiting. I gave them bank account information. Well, they put it in and the CRA sees that.
This is just ridiculous. Like this is almost a conspiracy where the left hand is pretending it doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Yeah. Well,
like the military is like, we're going to do the right thing. I shouldn't disparage the military. One agency says we're going to do the right thing and we're going to compensate you. But then the other agency, which is their accounting agency, just like yoink and takes your money.
Yep. Well, and that's what it was. And then I complained and it's all documented. So they resent it. And I think it was January. And I haven't been seized since, but I don't have any money anyways. But, you know, it's just, that's how it was. And they're just trying to ruin, like most guys would have killed themselves a long time ago. Like I actually have people phoning me, just kill yourself, Kirk. You know, let your kids have a decent life, you know, and I don't know any of these people. They're just random people phoning me, you know, but that's what they do. Here's the mental health act. Yep.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about is I had an interview with Dr. Anna Silvestrovich, and she's the one that told me about the Mental Health Act and how they're using it to detain people. They used it to detain you, right?
Yep. Oh, big time. Yeah. So I came to Bella Bella, like my ex-girlfriend was a social worker here, and she says, Kirk, they would love to have you here because you got lots of skills. And I said, I'm looking for a place to retire with my son. She says, no, perfect place. I came up here. First thing I did was go to the RCMP, tell them my story. I said, you don't want to have nothing to do with me. I put a barrel of a 45 on the table. And at the end of it, she says, we want nothing to do with you. So I said, well, do you want the barrel of the 45? She's like, nope. And then my son says, do you want the grenades? She just about turned red because I had smoke grenades, but they didn't know that they were smoke grenades. And either way, we went on our way, and I was fine from March. Like I finished talking to the sergeant or the lieutenant colonel in February. I came up here in March, March 28th, or I think I arrived here. And then I was good until September, and I had a 22 chicken gun that was stored at the RCMP because I live in the back of a truck, right? I didn't want it to, you know, there's lots of kids around that were visiting. Like Kenneth was very popular. So I kept it at the RCMP. Well, we got a new RCMP that didn't know the story. So he pinned my pal, which he automatically pinned the military police. And then all of a sudden, the cops that knew what was going on found me I was working with Kenneth outside and says, Kirk, military police know where you are. I'm like, okay, well, let's get this party started. So I pre-arranged for Igmar to look after Kenneth in case I would get arrested, which I told him sooner or later I'm going to get arrested here. bang on. I told the hospital, look, I'm not homicidal, I'm not suicidal. It's all recorded, by the way. And I said, I just want to get my doctor. I just have to report this. Finally, I tried everything, and you can see through the emails all the threats I got from the majors and everybody, like for a year. Finally, they found me. Well, they had me arrested under the Mental Health Act for reporting wrongdoing involving a corrupt band chief and Trudeau. And I tried to report it, and I could look at this. I was looking at this RCMP, and this RCMP is not going to report any of this shit. I knew that. So either way, well, Kirk, we're going to have to send you to the Hope Center Mental Hospital, be evaluated. I'm like, perfect. They'll get the cops there. I'll be able to. I took my briefcase. I'll be able to tell my story. Was what I thought. Anyways, they say, Kirk, we can't have you on the plane. We have to make you unconscious. I'm like, why is that? Well, because it's in a plane. We don't want you freaking out. It's like, I used to jump out of helicopters fighting fires. My dad had 3 planes. I was flying since I was 2. I'm like, he says it's protocol. I'm like, no, it's not. I see people get on the planes for medicals all the time. Either way, I'm like, you know what? He said, well, we want to medicate you. I was like, nope, put me in a straitjacket. They're like, you're okay with that? I was like, yeah, just don't give me any meds. I don't know what you're like. I don't take drugs. I didn't like anything being put in my body I didn't know about. Well, either way, they put me in a straitjacket, and then guess what? They drugged me unconscious, and I woke up 2 days later in a mental hospital, where upon arrival, they said, do you think there's a conspiracy against you? I'm like, yes. Kirk, you're never going to get out of here if you don't stop talking like that. I was like, well, it's the truth. Can you prove it? I'm like, yes. And I'm thinking I'm going to talk to a doctor. Well, I talked to a doctor for 5 minutes. Then they come back with a bunch of drugs. And I'm like, what's this? Well, it's drugs for your cocaine addiction, your alcoholism, and your paranoid delusions. I'm like, what? I find out later through the Freedom of Information Act, the Lieutenant Colonel and Jim Searson had reported this stuff to them. Like, they made it up. Well, just so everyone knows, I had 8 years or 7 years of random drug tests done since 2015 because I knew this was coming. So either way, I'm in a mental hospital. I realize they're not here to help me. They're not listening to anything I say. I got to make a plan D, I guess, whatever. Like, nobody knew where I was. I had one friend that's kind of stuck with me a bit. I let her know, and she actually came to the mental hospital. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm there thinking I'm screwed. I got to make a different plan, but I see people walking around with earbuds. I'm like, hey, I says, can I get my USB player from my briefcase and a charger? And they say, yeah. So I go in there and I grab this. It looks like a USB player. And I grab my charger. It looks like a charger. They're actually recording devices. So I was able to record inside the mental hospital me getting screwed over. I'm actually talking to a nurse that's like, Kirk, you have to take your meds or you're never going to get out of here. I'm like, I'm not taking meds for something I don't need. Like, I don't have any drug addictions or anything like that. Kirk, you're never going to get out of here. Just a sec. Dave, I'm in that interview. Talk later. Shit. So yeah, they're saying I'm never going to get out unless I start taking these mind-altering drugs, which I'm not gonna. And they said, well, we're going to force them on you then. I was like, you're going to have to get some pretty big fucking guys up here then, And I tried phoning the UN. I tried phoning Human Rights BC. They all said the same thing. Well, what nationality? Like, I said, well, I'm Canadian. Well, are you black? I'm like, no, I'm white. We can't help you. Simple as that. I'm like, what? They don't deal with stuff like that. White people being abused. But either way, I got them all recorded. And finally, like even the doctors there were ex-military. It's just bizarre. And finally, after 2 weeks, I get to talk to this doctor, and he says, Kirk, do you think there's a conspiracy against you? I'm like, yes. He says, Kirk, it's very hard for us to get you out of your treatment if you keep thinking like this. I was like, well, I can prove it. And he says, how can you prove it? I said, well, get my briefcase. It's my documents are in there. And I said to him, I got recordings too. And this is recorded, by the way. And I said, I'm recording you right now. And he looked me in the eyes and he knew I was recording him. I have this thing. it wasn't hard to see this thing sticking out of my shirt, So he knew, but he didn't know whether it was closed circuit or whether it was going out, because he didn't know I had a visitor, and that visitor came and took my recording devices, copied them all, and brought them back. So he didn't know whether it was going live stream or not. See, Kirk, you don't have to be here anymore. So they started making arrangements for me to get out. They said, we phoned the military, they're going to release you without a 5F, and you can put this behind you and carry on with your life. So that's what I thought. Either way, they gave me is this where I talk about where I got a 2-hour pass in Vancouver? But I got a pass to go. I had no money, of course, so I'm just walking. And then I go in, I see a Liberal nomination office. So I go in there and I was like, hey, I want to talk to the boss. Oh, he's not in. I was like, well, here, I got some stuff you want to share with Trudeau. And she asked, it's all recorded, by the way. She asked me a bunch of questions and I showed her some documents. She's like, oh my God, what do you want me to do with this? It's like, I want you to tell Trudeau, like warn Trudeau. Nope. I left that. I walked out. 2 blocks down the road, there's an NDP office. Same thing. Shit, I can't remember her name. Jennifer Bell, I think her name was. She used to work for Global Canada, she said, but she was pretty much crying after I gave her the same story. And I was always polite. I'm not, I get a little stressed, but I was always a nice guy to them. And she was crying. She's like, I can't believe this is happening to you. Either way, I go back to the hospital. The next day I get picked up by a captain and a second lieutenant, both females. They take me to Cabela's before I did the ferry to Esquimalt. And they say, we'll meet you back at the car. So they're not worried about me attacking these women. They're not worried about me fleeing, because I just want to get my truth. I thought I was going to go to the military police and get my stuff, right? So I meet them back at the car, and we go onto the ferry. When I'm on the ferry, I get a call from North Van, RCMP, or police or whatever. It's all recorded, asking me, did I go into a candidacy office and threaten them? I'm like, threaten them? I was like, what are you talking about? You got to listen to the recordings. But actually, they're transcribed as well. But I says, no. I said, my evidence can ruin political and military careers. That was the construed threat. It's true. My evidence will ruin careers, military and political. So he's asking me a bunch of questions. Do you have any guns on you? I'm like, I just got out of a mental hospital. The chance of me acquiring a gun that fast are slim. Either way, he asked for my PAL, my paperwork for my PAL. I have my restricted to, like, before this happened, I was allowed to transport 10,000 military rounds in my personal vehicle. I have the documents of me transporting this. And then as soon as I report it, I'm not allowed to have guns. So he talks to the captain. They say, yeah, Kirk's given us his PAL. We're in the process of releasing him. It's all good. And he's like, okay. And I says, you have to report this. It's your duty as an RCMP member, to report this. And nope. Officer Randawa. Either way, he's not a brave RCMP member. I don't think he should be one. But there's a lot of them like that. They're either cowards or corrupt. So back to, I'm out of the mental hospital. I'm trying to get my evidence in. We go to this base. They lock the keys in the car. So they're trying to find a guy to get the keys out. I had a military friend. I called him up. He gave me a ride. First, I tried to give my evidence to the military police. It was just a corporal, right? He wouldn't take this. He wouldn't take my recording device. I said, well, the evidence is on here. I tried to give it to him. He's like, nope. Oh, you can give it to us, but we're not going to give you a copy back. Like, well, that's not going to happen today, right? So I gave them enough evidence in my briefcase. Not one question was asked, ever.
Kirk, I have to cut you off. I have to get going to another interview.
Yeah.
I only got an hour and a half here, roughly. So I think we accomplished a fair deal, and we got your story out in a clear manner. We have the thread that's going to persist forever, and you can add evidence to that. And I really, really hope that one of the bigger outlets picks up your story and we see some justice.
I hope a member of parliament, mainstream media, RCMP finish this job that you started. Like, there's a lot more, and they get paid to do this. You don't, and that's what the military ombudsman says, Kirk. They pay people to ruin people like yours lives. It's the government. They can do whatever they want, and and they are proving out with my story. They can do whatever they want. It's just, I appreciate that. Thank you. And we can do this again. And I encourage everyone to just go on my Facebook or X and just look, or phone me if there's any questions, but please share it with any politician, RCMP, and then you will see if they're any good or not. Share it with podcasters, and then you will see if they are any good or not. That's how I, it's, I'm doing my duty. Why aren't they doing theirs? Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on, Kirk. We'll pick this up at some point in the future.
Tons of documents. Thanks a lot, sir. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye, everyone.